Yo, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got some great information for you guys, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're starting off with some more information on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate from Masahiro Sakurai when it comes to the development and everything. Shoutouts to Source Gaming for translating all of this. So we will be going over some of their tweets. So there is some new information from a recent interview with Masahiro Sakurai. So this time Sakurai says that he left balancing completely to the balancing team. He wasn't involved in adjusting parameters at all. Next, when talking about the game's speed, he mentioned the speed increase kind of shackles the online experience because there's less room to account for lag, which I can definitely agree with that, just because of the speed of the game. When you're playing against connections, when people don't have really top tier or really good connections, you can definitely feel it more in this game than probably any other Smash Brothers game. Although Smash Brothers Brawl, the online was just horrible no matter how the game speed was. And with Smash for Wii U, good connection, good game, so it just depends, right? Now the Nintendo 3DS had a smaller screen without the rich features of the Switch, so they adjusted the game speed to match that. Now I'm talking about Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, and that speed compared to the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate speed. Now that being said, the speed boost has drawbacks. For example, the increased knockback speed makes it easier to lose track of your character. When making Super Smash Bros. Brawl, the team slowed things down a bit since the high speed of Melee would have been too exclusionary for all the new / inexperienced players the Wii would bring in. So they take into account a number of factors: hardware, current trends, etc. when deciding aspects like the game's speed. Now in Sakurai's mind, they're optimizing the game for its current scale and style of play. Now moving on to a completely different type of thing, we're talking about characters here. Sakurai says that Castlevania was highly requested in the Smash ballot, and when it came time to add new content, Sakurai says his choices were limited. A lot of players would have probably been most familiar with Alucard, but fans would probably prefer one of the Belmonts, even though they're unrelated to the latter games in the series. So that was pretty much what he had to say there in terms of the new information. There is a lot of good stuff, and it kind of gives you a little bit of insight into the mind of Sakurai when he's making a new game and kind of what he has to do. I love the fact that they actually put in the Belmonts in there, because I do think Alucard would have been awesome as well, but I think people would have also said, man, it would have been great if we can play as a Belmont. So if like Simon or Richter were assist trophies instead, I think that wouldn't have been as good if Alucard was playable and it was like the other way around. I think you need a Belmont in there just because that name is so synonymous with Castlevania and kind of like what you do, right? So I think that it was a good decision to put the Belmonts in there, and maybe for the next game, maybe Alucard gets in. Now moving on to the speed of the game and kind of how everything was done there, I think it makes sense, but at the same time you also have to factor in multiple different things like longevity and what people are going to want to play competitively as well. And I think Sakurai did a good job, especially with that this time, because with Brawl, he didn't just slow the game down, he also added tripping. So he also added in a bit of like mocking the competitive scene as well. So it wasn't just like, oh well, we're gonna slow the game down because there's new inexperienced players. He also added tripping because people would wave dash all the time and kind of move around, and he just kind of shunned it, that competitive aspect. Otherwise he wouldn't have added tripping in addition to slowing the game down. So Sakurai didn't kind of include the whole story there, but it's all good. But when it comes down to it, great information from Sakurai on this one here, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is easily going to be the best-selling Smash Bros. Game of all time. It's already breaking sales records, and we don't even have numbers yet. We just know from the launch this game had big things when it comes to the best launch of all time for any Smash Bros. Game. So this is awesome to hear what Sakurai has to say, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot more information as the months and years go on this game and the development of it. So what do you guys think about what Sakurai had to say here with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Ultimate? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, Hajime Tabata has discussed his departure from Square Enix and his brand new game studio establishment. So Hajime Tabata, the Final Fantasy 15 director that recently left Square Enix and started up his own game studio called JP Games, discussed his leave and the new studio during a Nico Nico end of year broadcast, Game Industry Idol Chat, hashtag end of year party 2018. So this information is actually really cool because Tabata was like, I'm out, I'm tired of this shenanigans, but he says it in a different way essentially. So let's go ahead and get into the first part here, which is the Square Enix departure. I made the decision to leave Square Enix, and in our various discussions regarding duties and positions handoffs, the fate of Final Fantasy XV's downloadable content was decided. Personally, ceasing the development of the Final Fantasy 15 downloadable content was a disappointment. I am truly sorry to all the people who were looking forward to it. In response to CyberConnect 2 president Hiroshi Yasuyama, who said, as a fan of Final Fantasy 15, I really wanted Tabata to see it through before leaving the company. I wasn't able to finish it, but I do feel like I did everything I could. Deciding to leave the company was ultimately an issue of my motivation. I want to go in my own direction and do what I want without annoying anyone or the company. I am disappointed that I was not able to release all of the Final Fantasy 15 downloadable content myself, and am truly sorry, but there is no relationship between that and my leaving the company. I didn't get into a fight with Square Enix. I left on good terms, so that's good to hear. Then he later talks about the JP Games Inc., his brand new company that he established. There are several people working at the newly established JP Games. We're still looking for an office though. We haven't received any outside investments. We're currently self-funded. At first, I wondered if it would be possible to make AAA game as an independent company. We're still adding team members, but I think we're going to settle with a small number of staff. I'm thinking about several games I want to make, but I can't say what they are right now. As for platforms, I want to do multi-platform development across consoles, PC, and smartphones. During Final Fantasy 15, I really wanted to change the way we were developing. When it got busy, the workload exploded, so we never had enough staff. At times like that, we would get a bunch of people in studios in places like Vietnam or Malaysia to develop, but it was difficult to scale up in a flexible way. I had to prepare high-spec PCs, create all the security policies, etc. That was all a pain, so I'm changing the way we do things, like to be cloud-based, for example. Before we make a game, I want to evolve the way we develop it. I want to be able to make a large-scale game at some point, but I don't think we're going to hire a ton of developers in one place. It'll basically be developed virtually. So interesting information from Hajime Tabata when it comes to his exit from Square Enix and all that. And it seems like there is a lot of focus on not finishing the Final Fantasy 15 DLC, and that caused a lot of, I would probably say, tension within Square Enix. I think they probably wanted him to stay and finish that DLC, and then the Cyber 2 Connect president kind of chiming in. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there that are like, man, you're leaving during the DLC, but at the same time, this game was a complete mess. This game was a complete mess from 10 or however many years ago when it was announced, 10 plus years ago, all the way through its development, even getting delayed towards the end when they said it was going to announce it this time at their big launch party or whatever, or their big announcement party. It even got delayed past that. So you have to look at it this way, man. I mean, I can see why he didn't want to develop games like this anymore, and I can see why he said, I'm done and I'm out after this, and kind of how Square Enix does things, like the way that they try to make Final Fantasy, or the way that the stipulations and rules and regulations are. I can't blame him for leaving, even though they didn't finish the DLC. I can't blame him at all. And like, how much DLC does the game need? The game already had a complete Royal Edition that completely changed the way the game played. It already had multiple pieces of DLC. It was getting overkill anyway, so I don't have a problem with him leaving, but I understand that there are some people that were upset. They're looking forward to the rest of the DLC, but there's already a ton of DLC for the game, a bunch of free DLC, and a bunch of actual DLC pieces added in. I think enough is enough. It's time to move on, Square Enix. Sell your Royal Edition for 20 or 30 bucks or whatever you're going to get it to, and just do your best at marketing that and getting the most value out of that. Like, enough with the DLC. So that's just my thoughts on it as someone who played Final Fantasy from launch and has played a little bit of the extra content in there as well. It's time to move on for Tabata and also for Square Enix when it comes to this. Sell the game, do what you can, move on to the next Final Fantasy, and I think that's what everybody's doing at this point. So what do you guys think about what Tabata had to say here, his departure from Square Enix and his brand new JP Games Inc.? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the final topic here, the Nintendo Switch has actually sold around 200,000 units in the UK over the previous 3 weeks, which was up from last year. So the Switch is actually doing better this year in the UK than it did last year, with all those different games that came out like Super Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade, Zelda, and all of that. This period it's doing better. So let's go ahead and get into the topic here. So when the Nintendo Switch launched last year, the system managed to reach 300,000 units sold milestone in the UK during the Super Mario Odyssey's release week. Now if you fast forward 1 year, you could argue definitely that it's doing a lot better at this point and having more success, despite a lot of people trying to say that 2017 had way better games or whatever the case is. Now, over the previous 3 weeks, the Nintendo Switch sold 200,000 units in the UK, and for those who are interested in the comparisons, it sold roughly 130,000 units during the same period in 2017. And I think that the big indicators of this is, one, obviously positive word of mouth. The marketing is getting kind of around there in the UK. Nintendo's doing better. Still PlayStation country for the most part. Sony's been doing way better there, but at the same time, if you look at like Super Smash Brothers, you look at games like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, those are having a bigger impact than what Super Mario Odyssey and Xenoblade and some of the late games did there, Fire Emblem Warriors, and that's just awesome to see, right? I want to see more systems being sold there in the UK. UK's traditionally not been really an area where Nintendo does that great. Nintendo's big areas are definitely like France in Europe, and also Japan. Obviously that's big there, they're dominating there, and the US, they're doing very well here. So the UK has never been a hotbed for Nintendo content recently. However, with the Switch, things are kind of turning around just a bit, so it's good to see the system pulling more units there, and of course the more systems sold, obviously the more developers are interested in the platform. So what do you guys think about the Switch selling a lot better in the UK at this point? Also what Tabata had to say, and of course Masahiro Sakurai with Super Smash Brothers in general. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, Ninja, that wraps it up for this video here. Go ahead and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Let me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future, and subscribe to Player Essence for this RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you, Ninja, for the next video. Peace.